Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and the man joining me to my side, my colleague, good buddy, pal. I don't like to call him a sidekick. I feel like we're fighting crime, one-on-one next to each other. Vigilante, Mr. Brian E. Roach. What's going on, my friend?
I'm not fighting crime.
You're not a vigilante.
I'm not fighting crime.
Well, I didn't want to say like Batman and Robin. I think you're like it could be like a Batman and Aquaman, maybe. Something like that. I don't know.
Sure.
If you're in the
I'm
DC
okay
universe.
as long as I'm Jason Momoa's Aquaman and not like punk Aquaman from the cartoons.
Some more like Fish Dude or something, like one of the worst. Aquaman used to get a bad reputation until Jason Momoa popped up on the scene. So I should have went with the MCU instead of the DCU, DCEU, whichever one they're floating around and rebooting for the 80th time. But it's actually an odd segue for that, folks, because we're hoping that this isn't a reboot of the Steelers once again in 2024 as we head in. I know most of you folks thought we were full of the Burrow Shih Tzu with our predictions and 12-13 wins like we did. We actually gave us one fewer win than we did the previous year, and we think the whole AFC North is going to be loaded. So it's going to be a fun season. Go back and check out our predictions from the last show if you haven't. We're back here after the long Labor Day break. College football is underway. Pro football is right around the corner with this like super weekend games Thursday, Friday, Sunday, Monday. Steelers 1 o'clock on Fox. So check your local listings at the Atlanta Falcons for week 1 to kick off their season. Couldn't be any more excited. It's finally here, Brian.
It is finally here. I will say this. I'm annoyed. And I'm going to tell you why I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed that the Akron Zips got 6 points. That's what I'm annoyed by. That should not have happened.
That poor quarterback was running for his life even against like third string Buckeyes, man. I mean,
I know.
Oh, I felt so bad for that dude. He was getting dinged the entire, it's promising at least because in the college football realm, Ohio State's defense wasn't so hot, I think, last year. And you get to see a couple other things. The constant transfer portal things of trying to figure out, hey, I know that quarterback. He was with whatever team.
Kansas State.
Yeah. You're like, well, and then you're looking at like the collapse of Florida State and the Irish controversially holding on. And, now we're going to get to do this with pro football. Now it's pro football's weekend. We're out of week 0 with college and, games being played, across the pond and all that crazy stuff. But we got the Sao Paulo, Brazil game on Friday, where supposedly the Eagles aren't allowed to wear green because it's, territorial.
Only one team.
The soccer.
Only one team may wear green in this stadium, or Brazil will go extinct. I don't know.
The football. Now that differs. We call it soccer, and over the pond, it's in the UK and stuff. The Europeans, it's football, but down in South America, it's football. But now they're going to get American football or football. I don't know which it is.
Well, I'm going to offend everyone. What it really is boring.
Oh, you can. You're stuck in your old ways.
Boring.
You know what? I won't disagree with it. It depends which level of soccer that you're watching. Like, and it builds to anticipation. If you're actually there, I feel like soccer's a sport unless it's like playoff implication. Something's on the line, right? It's the same thing with hockey. You got to be there. Like hockey can be boring on TV too. I know that might be sacrilege to some.
Complete segue. Again, wasting time before we talk about this game. So there's a pizza place, a little Italian guy runs his pizza place near me, right? He's first generation United States, came from Italy. And they know me there and they always talk to me there. So he talks to me and he always says, how are the Steelers going to do? And that's my incredibly bad Italian accent.
Sounds like Super Mario.
Yeah, well, what do you expect? That's my context for this. Anyway, so he's telling me about, he's big soccer fan and Italy has been doing. He's like, we stunk, but now we have a new owner and the guy spent all this money. And this is a guy whose soccer is his game. This is his passion. He goes, the first, hour and a half was really boring. And then the next of it, finally they scored a goal. One goal. They scored a goal and won a.
Well, and that could be like, it's like watching the preseason football games that we just went through that could be miserable. You get some of these games like Steelers and Ravens where it's very low scoring and it's like a defensive battle. That can hold true in soccer too. They have formations just going to pack it in and not let the other team score because they're incapable of scoring themselves. So it's kind of weird, the parallels between the two sports and how football actually kind of grew out of that. Of course, rugby as well, but you have 11 players on each side in both sports and stuff like that. But I digress.
I think that's where it ends, right?
Yeah,
there.
I digress.
11 players on each side. That's the end of the compare. If it's a defensive battle, you at least get to see people getting killed.
Well, that's kind of, I don't want to go into Steelers defense versus Falcons offense just yet because there's also some current events and since we last spoke. But yeah, let me jump back to this real quick because I don't want to forget. I know some folks punch into the show and want to see, here's the territory map for Fox in the early window, 1 o'clock, all of the red, Pittsburgh Steelers versus Atlanta Falcons. It is the top game nationally televised. I don't know what else Fox got going on. I'm going to have to look real quick because the rest of those are just regional. Whatever reason they made the Steelers, maybe just because it's the Steelers. I'm like, because if you go to the CBS window now in the Pittsburgh markets, they're getting the later game. There's nothing up against Steelers Falcons in the actual Pittsburgh market, Atlanta market, and a few others like Nashville, Minnesota, and stuff are getting the Raiders and Chargers later on. So you've got the Vikings and Giants, Titans and Bears, and Panthers and Saints. So I just tell, like, Fox did not do a very good job with the 1 o'clock window and saying, hey, everyone, get excited to watch the NFL. It's back. These are like crappy, like when they had the Thursday night games sometimes that are just, you're locked into like a really horrible matchup. Like those are some really, let's be honest here. Steelers and Falcons could be really bad this year too. I know we've been homering, but everybody else is predicting the Steelers to be bad, and that's just because they don't pay attention. They still believe. I still heard stuff about a quarterback battle this morning with Justin Fields. I'm like, makes my head explode, let me tell you. But I'm just like, wow, okay, I guess it is Steelers. Let's at least pick the team that's going to get viewership and increase our ad buy. So I'll pop it on the screen one more time in the red. It's pretty much, if you're listening to this, all of Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, most of, DC, Baltimore, Virginia, up into the New England states, Atlanta, Georgia, all the way down through most of Florida with the exception of Miami, and then Texas and most of Tornado Alley, all the way the hell over, except for the Dakotas, down to the West Coast, is getting this game. So once again, 1 o'clock, Joe Davis and Greg Olsen. Get to hear Greg Olsen's terrible. I don't know how he's like their point guy for Fox, but I guess they've lost everybody in the interim.
Anymore, I think they're all bad.
That's true. I like, you don't have John Madden anymore. You know what I mean? So, I mean, when you tuned into a game and it was Pat Summerall and John Madden, it always had a different feel to it. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's just me. So, Brian, I was going to bring up the topics bar, throwing it out the window. Since you and I talked, Brandon Aiyuk, just as we said would maybe happen and happened like a day or two after we ran the show, signs a 4-year, $120 million extension with the San Francisco 49ers, completely used all of this as a ruse to just re-sign with his current team and leverage to a bigger contract. There's people out there. I literally saw one of these accounts. I'm not going to mention which one it was on Twitter. Ooh, I actually wish I had it because it'd be one of the bad takes of the week, right?
Yeah.
But this person was like, this was my dream. I was carrying through this for, I don't know, not 2 months, like 6 months, 8 months. I really thought it was going to happen. I'm really crushed. I think they said they were crying. I'm just like, what the hell is wrong with you people? Like, it was like, hey, if this happens, cool. That's awesome. But and not even that it's awesome. We had the doubts that this offense could support Aiyuk being, or 2 wide receivers putting up like 1,000 yards or anything like that. It almost felt like wasteful, and it felt like, well, we're really closing the door maybe on George Pickens. in a contract extension. I know that people like to kick the can down the road with all these void years and all the different money that gets tossed around, which we could talk about in a moment too. But the cap hits that are coming out of this when it comes to Aiyuk's contract, and I'm going to pull it up here. Yeah. So it's not only just like the 30-some million or whatever average per season, which is in itself enough, right? Zooming in, bringing it up. Here we go. He's got a void year, 2029. He's a young enough guy. He's 26, so they're going to have him through like the magic age of 30, and he turns to 31. But look at those cap hits in his last 2 years. 2028, in 2027 and 2028, 4.2 and 44.1 million. Now they could get out of that last one. They could save those last 2 years. They could save 19.3 and 30.4. But that's just, to me, that's an insane contract. I'm glad the Steelers didn't bite on this, give up draft capital just to hand, he's a young enough player, but is he proven enough? I just don't feel it. I don't feel that he should be. I think his average per year puts him firmly at 5th highest paid wide receiver in the league right now.
We're going to have our own problems with that in a year. So I didn't want to do that now.
I'm with you. George Pickens will probably do the same. There's no indication that he won't, and all wide receivers act like divas. You see what's going on with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins down there in Cincinnati. It'll be interesting to see, does Chase sit? He's going to have to play or else his contract tolls. Going back years, for those of you who've been following this show for several years, and by the way, this year is the 10th overall anniversary of Steel City Underground, by the way. Yeah, we haven't really talked about that a whole lot, but this is like the 10th season now with the website. The show's a little younger by a couple years, but we've been around for a while, Brian, covering this team, and this was like all the Le'Veon Bell stuff. This was contract's going to toll if this dude doesn't show up and play. He's leaving money on the table, all that stuff. I'm cool with this. I know a lot of people are freaking out about the wide receiver 2 spot. And we've talked about this enough, and we're going to talk about Steelers offense, but I want to jump into the wide receiver. Do you have that big of concern with wide receiver 2? And I'm going to say no, because this team has technically 4 tight ends on the roster, which tells you what they're going to try and do. I think they're going to try and get the ball to Pat Freiermuth. I think they're going to run the football with Najee Harris and Jalen Warren.
I think that is what they want to do. I agree with that completely. That's the offense they have tried to build, a more of a power offense than a high-flying offense, right? That's what they want to do. There's no question about that. Am I concerned that there are no more options outside of George Pickens? Look, here's the thing. If your defense is good enough, right, and can hold some of the more potent offenses in check, because you're going to have to play Kansas City. You're probably going to have to play Buffalo. We know we have to play them, but to get through the playoffs, you're probably going to hit those 2 teams. Cincinnati could have a very potent offense. If you have to hold those guys in check, the defense is going to hold it. We don't have an offense that's going to put up those kind of points. So that's where there's the potential for concern. But we may have a very well-balanced team in the sense that the defense and the offense play comparable levels of football, and the defense can carry them in some of those cases, hopefully.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of... I look at the Justin Fields chatter as the same as people that were crying and saying Mitch Trubisky didn't get his full chance, put him in over Pickett. Then you saw what happened. He got yanked for Mason Rudolph, and then a team with a little bit of competent quarterbacking, 2 of the last 3 games over 30 points. The game against some of the Ravens backups and into monsoon, not as many points, but still a victory, and the team crawls into the postseason. Let's talk about the other one right here. Cam Heyward, contract extension. And I want to say this was one of the worst takes of the week was from someone. Was someone saying this is like one of the worst contracts ever. And they tried to compare it to even Deshaun. It's worse than Deshaun Watson and the Browns. And I'm like, wait a second, as we're talking cap hits and everything else, Heyward was in the ballpark. Let's see if Over the Cap, this is like my favorite website because I don't profess to be a giant cap wizard, but they have not updated yet. But I believe this is now with the different bonuses and the extension of 3 years. I think Cam's now averaging 15 per year. So his cap number's actually been lowered. He's still back to where his base salary was, and he will retire a Pittsburgh Steeler. And there's actually people that are pissed off about this. I get he's 35 years old, but the people that are talking about Cam Heyward misses games. Wait a minute. Just last year, he was hurt, and he's a gladiator. He goes out there, despite the injuries that he's had, he's still found a way to limp through the games that he limped. And we've talked about this. He had double-digit sacks in the previous 2 years. He was an all-pro in 2021 with 10 sacks, 10 and a half in 2022, and didn't miss a single game. Most of the games that have been missed, he missed due to COVID back in 2020. Nothing major. He's played like damn near every game since basically 2017. The 2016 season's the one where he got a little dinged up, and we remember what that defense looked like without Cam Heyward back then. Widely considered, maybe not enough to the national level recognition that he deserves, but most people felt this guy's about the best damn defensive lineman in the league next to Aaron Donald. He's a dominant guy when healthy, and we talk about how age kind of is a number with defensive players, and especially like with the wear and tear of someone like Cameron Heyward, who didn't leap out there in his first few years in the season. So he got a later start. So as provided that he's healthy and injuries, knock on wood, aren't an issue, I see no reason. I mean, Brett Kiesel was around here to 37, 38, 39 years old. James Harrison playing as an edge rusher. There's no reason to believe that Cam Heyward can't do the same. And at a high level too.
Look at it. What's after this year? Let's say, and I don't believe this will happen. Let's say Cam stinks this year, right? Let's say he's terrible. He doesn't bounce back, and he's not the Cam we're used to. They probably get out of it.
Yeah, I have. That's why I was looking. They didn't have it updated yet. There isn't the full details, but I'm sure there's, there's some craftiness that's put into this. The Steelers don't deal with a lot of this void year crap that a lot of these other teams do and kick the can. And this gives them a little bit of cap relief here because I expect Pat Freiermuth to be the next guy in line for an extension. If we don't hear it by the end of this week, then it probably doesn't get done either. We obviously the same thing with Najee Harris. They have about $8 million in team cap space right now before this little extension and redo of the contract, I think, is going to free up some money there. In fact, Jerry Dulac, hold on a second. I believe Jerry Dulac actually said something to the effect, and it was a $45 million deal. Got it here for us, Brian. Per the sources, they converted his $16 million salary this year into a bonus. And then, so he will save them $9 million against the salary cap. So it's going to be another 9 on top of the 18, gives them about 16, 17. But there's nobody out there, I think, that they're making any major signings for. This is either going to be rollover or just saved for injuries for next year's cap.
Yeah.
Speaking of cap, did you see what the Browns did with Deshaun Watson's contract? Like, I feel like this is like, we were just talking about it, and then they restructured this dude again. And I'm just trying to figure out what the hell Andrew Berry and these like guys are thinking. There's only so much that you could restructure. Here's the numbers. If you take a look at this, Deshaun Watson goes up to like $73 million over the next 2 years?
Next year.
Yeah, it is next year. Yeah, it is next year. You can't do anything. You can't do anything with them because that's all dead money that's sitting there. It's all Odom. It's all guaranteed. And I just hear Browns fans like, oh, well, they got the most cap room in the league. Now, I was looking at, there's still a salary floor, and it's over like a 3 or 4 year period that the teams have to spend something. It's kind of, I'm not going to go into all this right here, but it's tiered. And over that period, you have to spend something like 95% of your cap and 98 over this and whatever. Like the cash has to be accounted. They actually have to pay this out. So if they move too much of this money and they don't pay it out, they may be in danger of violating something with the salary cap too. Although that 73 gets paid next year and they don't move it or shift it or whatever, I think that'll hit like the percentage. But just looking at that, like, look at that cap hit. It's 28.1% of the, guesstimated cap for the following year and 25.7. So a quarter of the team for one guy. And you're getting up to 8.5% roughly with the one void year that they tossed in after. They can't put anything else. They can't do anything else with this. They're stuck with this guy. Like, and when's he going to play? He didn't play the whole, 3 years ago. He was suspended 6 games the previous year before that. And last year he missed half the season too with his shoulder. He didn't really play anything preseason. It's I just kind of chuckle when some folks are going to go and build a bridge and say that the Cam Heyward contract's bad when you look at something like this one.
I mean, like I said, it's not. The Cam Heyward contract is the Steelers doing business the way the Steelers have always done business, right? They're loyal to the people that are loyal to them. They take care of the players that have earned the right to be taken care of. They do the right things. But at the same time, it's a business. And so they've given Cam this opportunity. But if in fact it turns out it doesn't work out, then they'll find a way to get out of it. It isn't, and it's not going to, at most, it's going to maybe have an impact next year.
But here's what you do. You've now extended a locker room leader. You've extended a guy that's, been a captain in the locker room.
Just go back to that. Look at the guy. You got a Walter Payton Man of the Year award winner, a pillar of the community, a guy who is, does way more than just be one of the best defensive tackles in the league versus Deshaun Watson. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'll take Cam every day.
Yeah, I hear you. And Cam just recently named one of the Steelers 2024 captains. You've got two guys that are captains. Somebody said that Russell Wilson wasn't deserving of being a captain. I'm like, if anything tells you there wasn't a quarterback competition, not only is he a captain, but you got 2 Walter Payton Men of the Year out of the 4 captains, Miles Killebrew being your special teams captain, and then TJ Watt is also in this group. So there's your 4 captains: Cam Heyward, Miles Killebrew, TJ Watt, and Russell Wilson.
Stay on that for just a second. Miles Killebrew looks pretty. One of these things is not like the others. One of these things just doesn't belong. But not that Miles doesn't belong. He does. He's a standout. But man, that is a distinctly different image for Mr. Killebrew versus Cam and T, especially sitting in between Cam and TJ.
Yeah. Well, I was looking up. I'm like, how old is Miles Killebrew, man? He's looking pretty good. He's 31. So he's looking pretty good there,
Yes, he is.
I'll bring it up one more time. He almost he's kind of like a baby face to him. Like Cam looks like, the thing is, you've got guys scolding. Russ is half kind of serious face. Don't smile in your driver's license photo, then they can't identify you. But Miles Killebrew's he should be in a Head
he's
and
the
Shoulders
offense.
commercial.
He's the special teams captain, but his primary position is a defense. So he didn't get the defensive memo that said look fierce. He's like
very debonair. Well, I think the only things we really got noteworthy so far early in the week as far as injuries for these 2 games, Kyle Pitts, obviously high expectations for former 4th overall pick several years ago, tight end, limited hamstring injury, first year for the Falcons anyway. Head coach Raheem Morris stating that the other day. One of the other inside linebackers, Landman, I believe is his name. Why can't I think of his first name now? Nate Landman is also dinged up, I think, and Troy Anderson, I think. I think all of the inside linebackers, basically 2 or 3 of them for the Falcons, have been banged up through the preseason. Some of those were tissue injuries. They're believing that all of them are going to be a go. The Steelers, they added Boston Scott, who had a good preseason. We're talking about him at the last show. A lot of this show right now is catch up from the last show. It's we didn't have news for a month, and all of a sudden everything drops. Brandon Aiyuk, Cam Heyward, Boston Scott, we're hey, they added him, and now he's on injured list, the practice squad / injured list. So he's on the shelf for a little while. If he ever returns, that could even be an injury settlement. So I thought maybe he gets elevated and then he was going to be one of the return guys on Sunday. So special teams is going to be interesting. Speaking of Miles Killebrew, because of the kickoff thing, this is for real now. This whole landing zone thing, this dynamic kickoff, this goes into effect. And this, I guarantee you, this costs someone a game this weekend. Guaranteed. Because there's going to be somebody that doesn't cover one of these special teams units, a shanked kick, a penalty, whatever it might be, off of trying to work out some of the kinks with this. Because to this point, even the Steelers, you're playing a lot of guys that you're testing to see if they're going to make the team. And if they're going to make the team, they're going to primarily be a backup and play special teams units. And now they're not there. So, just knock on wood, cross fingers, do a little, spin clockwise 3 times and pray to the football gods that that's not the Steelers. Now, do I expect an ugly football game? A lot of people are bitching and complaining that the Atlanta Falcons are favored by 3 points at home. And I'm like, oh my God, it's the standard.
That's essentially a wash. That you get that because it's a wash.
Yeah, it's, it is it's like the standard 3 points, and they're like, oh my God, the Steelers are underdogs. And I'm like, that's not a really big deal. So I'm not even like worried about the line. It just tells me that it's like, hey, we don't know what these teams are going to do. Mike Tomlin said that in his press conference as well. He wasn't, he doesn't know what to expect from this new coaching staff. He doesn't know like game script or tendencies or anything. They're kind of like a virtual unknown heading into this game. So, we could go on the Steelers had the guy that was coaching there last year. And I think he knows the talent on that team probably better than most of the talent on that team. Because of course, every team year to year isn't identical to the one that preceded it. But some of the star players that are still there, like Drake London and Bijan Robinson, and those are dynamic players that the Steelers will have to contend with. But overall, am I highly worried about the Atlanta Falcons and their offense? I mean, if they're minus Kyle Pitts, that's one last thing, because he got Darnell Mooney, and who did I say was Ray McLeod makes an appearance here as another wide receiver in this wide receiver room. So I'm not like the least bit. I shouldn't say least bit concerned. Kirk Cousins could throw the ball around the field, but he's coming back from a major knee injury. He's with a brand new team. He's got to do all the same things that Russell Wilson's getting knocked with. New offensive coordinator, new offensive team. Can he do all of these things? Kirk Cousins has shown to me that he's been about it. He could get certain things done, but is he a top 10 quarterback in the league? He's more middling than anything.
So, I'm gonna segue a little bit, and Joe doesn't know anything about what I'm about to do. Just to let everybody know. The world is all about AI now, right? Everything is AI. AI this, AI that. You got people who are worried the Terminator's coming and AI is going to take over the world and all that. So I'm introducing a new post-game or pre-game segment, and I have high quality graphics, Joe. Here they are. High quality graphics.
AI says. I'm glad you could have sent that to me and I could have put it in here to make it look a little more presentable.
I just drew it 2 minutes ago. All right. So AI says, I did this. I know we're the most ill-prepared podcast on the planet, but I actually did this work. I did the work. Here, first of all, Gemini, Google's version of AI, is apparently the most honest version, basically saying, I can't do that. I don't know. Go do your own research, right? Microsoft's version, Copilot, says that some people say it's going to be the Falcons and some people say it's going to be the Steelers. You should look it up. But here's what they say, 20-17 Falcons. ChatGPT, the grandfather of AI applications, actually makes a prediction and says Steelers 20-17.
Well, folks, I don't even know what the over-under is for this game, to be honest, but that's about the type of score I'd expect, especially week 1. I think both offenses are going to be ugly, if you had to ask me, but I think the Steelers definitely have the defensive edge here. There's no reason for me to not believe that. Just look at it. Drake London, if Joey Porter roams, he's going to follow him everywhere. He's going to clamp him down. I think Dante Jackson's more than capable of covering Mooney. I'm not so worried. for some reason, my cousin was getting into a fight with me about this. Brian, see if you agree with me, but my recollection on this is, when's the last time the Steelers really had issues covering the tight end position? I don't remember anybody like really like killing them. Not like the way it used to be after Ryan Shazier got hurt, right? And even preceding him, it was just like, oh, you throw Gronk out there, he's going to have 150 yards and 2 TDs.
Once everybody got hurt last year, it wasn't great.
No.
Right?
Against Buffalo, it sucked because you had Miles Jack and Michael Walker out there and Eric Rowe. Even your safeties were hurt.
You know, they looked better against tight ends when Holcomb was there, and you had the guys that were targeted to do this. So you've got guys now. Who knows? This is the thing. I cannot make any predictions based on preseason, right? I don't know. This is the game where I feel like I'm going to start to get to know what they are and what they can actually be above everything else. I don't buy anything we saw in preseason, bad or good. So I think, here's what I think. I think T.J. Watt, Alex Highsmith, and Nick Herbig are all going to be terrors. I think that with that, and I've seen, the posts about the front seven, best in, who knows how long in history, whatever. I think that there is going to be intense pressure on every team they play on the quarterbacks. I think TJ is going to bring it. I think Alex is going to bring it. I think they're going to get pressure in the middle. I think Keanu Benton is going to be a force. I think when one of those guys needs a spell, Nick Herbig is going to do things. They're not going to have time. That's what I think, right? Which means they may be dependent on tight ends as targets. That just means that the guys that we have out there, if they can cover, that's great, right? They're not going to be able to generate these long down the field throws because they're not going to have time to do it. That's what I think. That's what I think the defense is, right? So I think the defense is going to be stingy. I actually am not sure I think the Falcons will score 17 points. Because I'm not that impressed with the Falcons offense for the same reasons you've already quoted. So I'm going to disagree with ChatGPT, and I don't think it's going to be a 17-point score for the Falcons. But we'll see. I am unsure the same way about the offensive side of the ball, right? I don't know what the heck we have yet. Russ looked good a little bit. But I don't know that that what we saw in preseason, I don't think is what we're going to see in the regular season. They always tone it back, right? I think you're going to see a little bit more power. You're going to see more focus, but until the offensive line gets its act together and it has some continuity built amongst them, who knows? I do expect it to be low scoring. I think every game they're in is going to be low scoring. If there's a high scoring affair with the Steelers involved, we're probably not going to win that game.
Yeah, and defensively, we're talking about who else was in the secondary for the Steelers at this point. At times, they didn't have Minkah Fitzpatrick. They're playing like Trenton Thompson, Elijah Riley, DeMonte Casey with a suspension at one point. They don't have the safeties. We talked about inside linebackers. I know where some of this comes from, and it's like, well, okay, Trey McBride, 8 for 89. You couldn't even tell, like, if you would have told me, or somebody asked, who was the Cardinals tight end last year? I'm like, yeah, okay. Now, we liked him coming out of college, and we know who he is, but I mean, just off the top of your head, and you wouldn't think that he would have a very big game at all. You know what I mean? And a lot of that is set with the offense. Mitchell Trubisky, even Kenny Pickett, Matt Canada, hello, 3 and out all the freaking time. You've got it was like a lot of little pump and dump type stuff, you know what I mean? Like even Mark Andrews in the first game against the Ravens caught 6 balls for 65 yards. Well, that was damn near the best on that team. But what did the Ravens do? It was a lot of bend don't break. That was a 17-10 Steelers victory. So even if you have Kyle Pitts running around there catching 5 or 6 balls for like 60 yards, that's kind of what you expect. We always got to remind people that the other team gets paid to play too. Kirk Cousins gets paid a lot of money. He's probably one of the other than Sam Bradford, I can't think of anybody else who's probably swindled more money out of a team in the National Football League minus the guy we also mentioned earlier with the Browns, like Deshaun Watson.
Oh yeah,
going to go down. But I mean, Bradford, he was signing huge. He's from the legacy before the new CBAs kicked in, and the rookies got a lot more money back then as well. So it's kind of unfair. But post that, Chase Daniel comes to mind as a backup as well. But I mean, seriously, Kirk Cousins, this guy has made so much money and doesn't have a lot to show for it, to be completely honest. So like you said, I don't necessarily look at the Falcons offensive line as I think they were probably better. It's kind of like in the same territory of the Steelers, but that was the identity of them the previous years because of Desmond Ridder and because of like Marcus Mariota, and that Arthur Smith had to run the football because he didn't have guys who could throw. So can these guys pass protect against Cam Heyward, Larry Ogunjobi, Keanu Benton? You're going to see Patrick Queen shot out of a cannon. I think you're going to see Peyton Wilson utilized a lot. Don't forget about Landon Roberts. This front seven is just going to be so dynamic, and it extends beyond just those seven because we didn't mention TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, so Roberts, Queen, and then of course the other three on the defensive line, Heyward, Ogunjobi, and Benton, right? That would be your base 3-4. But then you add Peyton Wilson, you add Nick Herbig, like that's pretty dynamite. And then you're going to add another safety into this group somewhere as well, because Deshaun Elliott's going to be paired up with Minkah Fitzpatrick. Minkah Fitzpatrick's going to be allowed to roam. DeMonte Casey's back. It's kind of like a little bit of a homecoming. Of course, the Ironhead Hayward stuff should be mentioned as well with Connor and Cam Heyward, their dad, longtime Falcons running back. It'll be emotional for them as well to perform while they're there. Joey Porter. So really the only like question mark I think on this defense for me, the only thing that causes me any concern is Beanie Bishop. And if Kyle Pitts even plays, you think they're going to roll Beanie Bishop just out there to create those kind of Beanie Bishop's not going to, I don't think he's going to see a lot of the field. I think it's going to be these multiple safety type sets. And you may even see Corey Trace. I don't know. Corey Trace to me feels like a boundary guy, and I don't think they'll use him. But I don't think the Steelers showed their whole hand. They're not going to put things on film in the preseason. It's going to be very vanilla, so teams don't have like weeks to game plan for them, you know?
Agreed. The defense doesn't worry me. As I said, I think I will be surprised if the Falcons score 17 points. If they do, then I'll start to have more concerns about this team.
Yeah. But I think the Steelers, I think what it really boils down to, Brian, is I know people don't want to settle for field goals and not touchdowns. You're going to be in a dome stadium. I think the atmosphere is going to be like it was a couple of years ago. I don't know. There was still like just direct from Ticketmaster, direct from the Falcons tickets that were available for this game. They have not sold season ticket packages. They've not sold anybody on a new quarterback or a new regime or anything like that. The Steelers, it's going to be loud for the Falcons offense to try and get some things operational in that stadium, I believe, especially, Steelers fans are going to be hungry. They're going to be there. This is the opening week for the NFL season. So I think that's going to benefit the Steelers some, may even benefit Russell Wilson. Now, that's not the part I'm really worried about with the offense. I think Russell Wilson protects the football. Will he take some sacks? We know that. Will he have enough time to throw? We don't know. Can he deliver the ball downfield? Yes. Will George Pickens make some stupid, ridiculous catch that keeps them in this game? Potentially. He's a human highlight reel. The wide receiver 2 spot, I think Van Jefferson can move the chains. I think some of the faster guys, I don't know where Roman Wilson is on his path to recovery, but we know that Calvin Austin can take the top off too, and you put both of them out there with 4.2, 4.3 speed. Falcons have a good secondary, right? They have AJ Terrell, who just got signed to inked to a new deal. That is one guy that was on my wish list for the Steelers. They didn't get him. They signed Jesse Bates the previous year. They just brought in Justin Simmons, who either had too high of a price tag or nobody really wanted him, formerly of Denver. He's up in his 30s, in his early 30s now, so he's getting a little long in the tooth. And then you got Mike Hughes, formerly of the Detroit Lions. They got a pretty formidable secondary there that, but how long will they hold? Can their pass rush get through? Matt Judon, another addition to this team. Healthy, he'll be a problem. Veteran, Grady Jarrett, he's been around for a minute. He'll might be... This is where the test is going to be against Zach Frazier. And what I'm trying to get to is Isaac Seumalo being out for maybe 3 or 4 weeks, week to week. He's already ruled out, avoided disaster. This is a guy that did not give up a sack last year. This is a guy that you needed as the cornerstone piece, the foundation of an offensive line. And now you're going to Spencer Anderson, who's played literally not at all in the NFL. So That's where my main concern lies, is having Spencer Anderson as a left guard next to Dan Moore Jr., coming off of the blind side there, where they're probably going to line Matt Judon up over. And Moore's there because Fatanu has not been healthy. You can't just throw Broderick Jones back over to that side and start Fatanu on the other side. You may be risking like real disaster. So I do think that they're going to have to set the pace and the tone with running the football, and you can't allow the Falcons defense to have Simmons just creep up into the box and take that away.
Yeah, I mean, the offensive line, the condition, the situation with the offensive line, it's concerning. Not having some, whatever his name is, Isaac. I don't even know why.
Seumalo.
Whatever
yes.
You just said.
I said it for you.
Yes, thank you. I mean, that is a major component. Look, we've said this for years. Everybody says it's not just us. It's offensive lines require consistency and time. Right? When you're generating and creating a great offensive line, you cannot easily do it if pieces of that puzzle keep moving in and out, right? The guys need to learn their tendencies. They need to learn to communicate. They need to kind of even mind read about what they're doing so that they know how to do their predictions, how to do all the pieces that they're going to do, what the guy next to them is going to do. And as they move these pieces around and as people jump in and out, that's a problem. It was a new offensive line to begin with, right? Because you've got a second-year player, a rookie, and potentially another rookie all playing. Now, it's even you don't have one of the anchors on the left side of that line. So we'll see. I'm a little leery of what the offensive line play will look like this week, which could concern us for next week. And when we made our predictions, we didn't know this. So, who knows?
Yeah, it's a more recent development. Seumalo not being there is troubling, to say the least. He is definitely the best offensive lineman that the Steelers have. But like I was starting to say, take a look at and come back to it real quick. Zach Frazier up against Grady Jarrett. I think you're going to find out what kind of player Zach Frazier is immediately. And if he doesn't allow Grady Jarrett to push him around, and even better, if he gets second level against the Falcons defenders, then you're going to find out that Zach Frazier is more than NFL capable. I mean, I really, really, really feel good. Like, this is the one that I want to plant my flag on. There was years in the past where I was like, oh, yeah, Cam Sutton. Last year was Keanu Benton for me, right? And then Joey Porter got to play, it's like, oh, this guy's got the goods. Zach Frazier's already showing me what needs to happen. And I believe, I think that's actually Spencer Anderson that's right next to him in that photo. So they've gotten like some extended looks from Anderson in the preseason, which I thought was kind of interesting too. And I know he's versatile and can play just about anywhere on the line. So that might be helpful in the oddest of ways, that he got a lot of time, because Frazier played a lot too, being a rookie. And then with Nate Herbig being, placed on injured reserve, that opened the door completely for Frazier. No more, funny business. This guy is going to play, and he's going to play now. Now you got to get Fatanu and some of these other things the mix in motion. But we know what it was like the previous year. Was it maybe Ben's last year, where they had like 5-6 different left guards, and Dan Moore was out there, and it was just a revolving door of dudes at left guard. Oh my goodness, was it so bad? So that might have been Kenny's first year too. I'm trying to remember which one it was. I may have my years, but it doesn't matter. It was just the point that we thought some of it was the trouble with having a consistent left guard next to Moore. And then we just kind of found out that maybe, no, Moore's the problem, and we need to just eventually move on. And I mean, they drafted Troy Fautanu to do it. I think there's going to be some growing pains, but the good news is I think the early part of this schedule benefits the Pittsburgh Steelers to iron out some of the wrinkles, offensive line, offense, and otherwise. And then hopefully, as you get into the more meat of the season, that second half, it's a lot more grueling with all the different scheduling hoops that they have to jump through, and the actual opponents that they have to play, like the Eagles or the Chiefs, all the whole AFC North slate in the second half as well. I think it's going to benefit the Steelers that they at least, they get to play like the Giants, for example. They get to play I mean, the Falcons, this isn't like, this might be evenly matched to start. We don't know who the Falcons are just yet. The Broncos with the rookie quarterback. I think that's going to help the Steelers and the Colts too. Anthony Richardson. Like, I like Anthony Richardson. Well, let's be honest. He played like 4 games last year. We don't know that he's going to be an NFL level quarterback. We don't even know how he's going to come back from being on the shelf for a while. So a lot of the stuff that you see that's good from quarterbacks is because they come right out of college. Kenny Pickett looked a little bit better because he was still fresh from having played a lot. They didn't sit him for like a whole year and everything like that. And he looked better than Trubisky that first year. And then, eventually fizzled and faded as he had a lot of stops and goes and awful offensive coordinator. So we hope, there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of hope. And that's all we can do until we see it. And hopefully we see it here in Atlanta. Arthur Smith, let's see this team get to 20 points. I think that would be exciting. Because if they go out there and they score like 9, unless it's like, if it's 9-6, you're going to be like, oh man, the Steelers defense lights out. They're going to be great. And then you're going to be like, man, this offense has got me terrified.
Yeah. Here's, I've limited expectations, right? Here's what I want. Don't go 3 and out on the first series. That's what I want. To me, if you don't go 3 and out on the first series, that to me is an initial success and continue some optimism. I'm not even asking for you to score. Just don't go 3 and out. On the flip side, defense, go 3 and out.
Well, there is one. That's a good point, Brian, because you got this dude right here, Cameron Johnston. They finally got a legitimate punter. And the Steelers can play the field position battle with the best of them now that they've actually got a punter that isn't going to just pooch it 30 yards, when they're backed up to their own goal line and give the other team the ball in the middle of the field. And all they got to do is gain 10 yards and have, who's the kicker for the Falcons? Is it Younghoe Koo? Yeah. He's a pretty good kicker. So, and kicking indoors as well. So I think when you bring the special teams play into this and the punt game, exactly that. If you could pick up, even if you have to punt, but you've run 7-8 plays and you've gained 25-30 yards and you put the other team back on their heels, that changes the play calling for the Atlanta Falcons. It does. And Absolutely. Now they're going to have to hand the ball off. The Steelers get stacked the box. Robinson might only get a yard or two first, second down. You put them into a 3rd and long. You shut them down, then they have to punt. That inches you a little closer now to your own end zone and into your own red zone, into your own scoring opportunities. That was something that the Steelers were largely incapable of doing prior. So I do have I do have a lot of, what do you want to say? I don't want to say expectations, but I do think that should be, at the very minimum, improved. I think Russell Wilson, again, I don't think he makes like the bad decisions. I think like the most, like I heard somebody say this the other day and I couldn't agree more. When you compare Russell Wilson and Justin Fields and them getting sacked and holding on to the football, what's the difference? The difference is Russell Wilson is looking somewhere down the field to make and extend plays. I used to say years ago when he was with the Seahawks, and I said he was my favorite non-Steeler, that it reminded me very much like of Ben Roethlisberger and, how he had the backyard football, especially with Antonio Brown. And if he could get on page with some guys like that, great. Justin Fields, on the other hand, is not seeing the field the same way, not processing it as quickly, and then it's more injury prone or mistakes. And those things that might be correctable with coaching and over time. He's not ready for that yet. That's why this wasn't a quarterback competition. You put the guy in there that's a veteran, that's been around, that's played in Super Bowls, that's won a Super Bowl, that's been in MVP talks. He's another guy that could be we used to call Ben a kingmaker at the wide receiver position. Russell Wilson, Doug Baldwin. You think about guys like Tyler Lockett. DK Metcalf was going to be whatever DK Metcalf was going to be. But guys like that, I think he's capable of doing the same with like a Calvin Austin or a Roman Wilson or even like Van Jefferson. If Van Jefferson can grab like 4 or 5 catches, they might not even throw 25 passes in this game. Stick to running the football, controlling the clock, play lights out defense. I think the Steelers will be fine. Score us at least 1 touchdown on offense. Hey, if there's 1 rushing and 1 passing, I'll be happy. Jaylen Warren sounds like he's trending to play. So everybody else is on the table right now for the Steelers. And all we can do is say, here we go for Sunday at 1:00.
Here we go.
Here we go. Thank you, my friend, for joining us. We tried to keep the little pre-game stuff. We got off on some, what were we talking about? I don't even know what we were talking about. You were talking about Super Mario making pizzas and liking soccer.
Yes, I was.
Yes, you were. There's a video that my buddy sent me, and it was Mario. If you didn't know, like, he was in Donkey Kong, and he was called Jumpman, and it was like he was with an HR guy or like an agent, and it was like, well, you can't be with Pauline anymore. Pauline was the damsel in distress in the Donkey Kong video games. I was like, you have to go by Mario now, and now you have to, look, I got this princess that's more interesting, Princess Peach, and it's really funny stuff. You'll have to look it up. So I'll just throw that out there for maybe some of my, we don't talk video games hardly, Brian. It's like one of those things, I struggle to find time for it. I'm more interested in movies. And so, oh, wait a minute. There you go. What do you got there? I know it's a Nintendo Switch, but
It's off.
It's off. But if I had to ask you what game was loaded in there, do you have anything loaded in there or anything on deck there?
I have the 2 Zelda games, the Call of the Wild and whatever the hell the next one was.
Oh my goodness.
And then I have Diablo 3.
Oh, there you go. I've never been the Diablo guy, but I'll tell you what, those 2 Zelda games, I put in like 200 hours on the last one. It took me a year. And it was because I wanted to, I'm a completionist guy, and I like to find all these different things and unlock different things. So I unlocked every shrine in both of those Zelda games.
I don't even want to win. I just wanted the kite so I could fly. That's it. That's all I wanted. I didn't care. Once I got it, that's all I did. I just started flying all around, and I didn't do anything else. I stopped. That's why I'm not actually playing the game anymore, because it got boring.
Oh, it's anything but. I'd encourage you to play through that. It's fun. It's like something like, it's like you just walk into it. My favorite thing about that is, versus some of the other games that could be open world, is that you can pretty much save and quit at any time. So you can just pick it up and go. And that fits the Switch, which you can pick up and go at any time. So traveling, I absolutely love it. A little bit of side notes for our 2%ers out there. I did have a blog at one point where I was doing the retro games, but I have trouble finding time to play video games and contribute to that blog like I used to, Brian. But for those of the 2%ers out there that might be interested, you're not obligated. It was just kind of a way to track what I was playing. A lot of old games I didn't get to finish. So you could check that out over at Joe's Retro Gaming. We're up against it, Brian. Thanks for joining me once again.
Tecmo
Bowl.
That's all I ever played when I used to play Nintendo.
Not as the Steelers, though.
I don't even remember if you could. Yes, I'm sure I did, but I just played Tecmo Bowl. Isn't that the one that there weren't really teams and you had to, but you could make the colors?
Well, yeah, some of them. So they did have Tecmo. The one did have the NFL teams. At one point, you had the Steelers. I think the one was just the cities. It's gonna be bad on me because I didn't actually own Tecmo Bowl as a kid. So I played a lot of it more like as an adult, flirting with it off and on. But I do remember Dwight Hands of Stone. I think they had the NFLPA for certain players. So they didn't have like Randall Cunningham. You had QB Eagles, for example, but they all kind of blend together. I can't remember which iteration of which game. And by the time you got to the Super Nintendo, yeah, I think they didn't even have all of the teams at one point because there wasn't the programmers, the developers. They didn't know how to fit all of that into the memory that was on a cartridge. So yeah, that'll do it for us, folks. Thank you for joining us once again. Do not leave a rating or review for this one because we were all over the place. We are excited to see football and we're delving off into other stuff. So we apologize for that, but most of you have already shut this off by this point anyways, and those of you that are here got a good chuckle. So we hope you enjoyed the show. Yeah. My name's Joe. His name's Brian. As we encourage most of you folks that are out there, we say most of you because we know some of you come in the comments and come at us. We don't own the Steelers. Don't hold our heads over any of this stuff. Steelers beat the Falcons, though. That's the way I've got it. That's the way we had it to begin with. 1-0 to start the season. Till next time, we encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.